We are live on a Tuesday, the 18th of February. Welcome inside the vault for a Ravens lunch hour live stream. I'm Bobby Trossett, as always, joined alongside Sarah Ellison. We're so glad you can be with us. Coming up on 24,000 subscriptions. So if you haven't already, please subscribe to the vault for daily, live, year-round content. Like the video on your way in and hit that notification bell so you can be notified when we're dropping our daily live content here inside the channel. We've got a lot coming up over the course of the next hour. And Sarah, I feel like we've been waiting patiently to start to dig our teeth into draft season. And while we are a long ways away, I think today might be the commencement of that. So that's what we have to start with. Is pressure potentially mounting on the Ravens to get after a legitimate pass rusher? Because that is something that Lamar really hasn't had throughout his time in Baltimore. We'll assess that courtesy of Mike Preston's latest on the Baltimore Sun. Mel Kiper had some thoughts to say about TJ Tampa, a second-year corner who we did not see a whole lot of last year, and his running mate, meaning Mel's running mate in their draft analysis, Field Yates. His mock draft 3.0 is out, and he has the Ravens going after a certain Georgia safety. So we'll take a look at that. The franchise tag window, meanwhile, begins at 4 p.m. Eastern today and runs through March 4th. And while the Ravens may not be in that market this year, the AFC North is certainly expected to be. So we'll go through all of those specifics. We got a lot coming up. It's great to see you. Let's get after it today.
Let's get after it. This feels like a good day to talk about pass rushers. That's what it feels like because, Bobby, since the season has ended, people have talked about a lot about two things. Number one, that the Ravens need a game wrecker. Not just, there's some legit guys. Both Odafe and Kyle Van Noy had double-digit sacks. We know that the Ravens finished with the second most sacks in the league. That's all wonderful, but there's no game wrecker. So we've been talking about the game wrecker, and there's been lots of comparisons about Lamar Jackson and Peyton Manning. Well, Mike Preston of the Baltimore Sun started to make a comparison between the two again, Peyton Manning and Lamar Jackson. But as he notes in his second paragraph, he's like, this is not what you think. I'm not going to be comparing how many times they've won MVPs, how many playoffs they've had, how many Super Bowl appearances they've had through their first 7 seasons. We've done that ad nauseum. What he is talking about is the players on the opposite side of the field that Peyton Manning had that Lamar Jackson didn't. And who he specifically points to is Dwight Freeney. I believe he's a Hall of Famer these days. And Robert Mathis. And so Mike Preston wants to see that kind of level of game wrecker on the other side of the defense, opposite of Lamar Jackson. He writes, Mike Preston does, the Ravens have a projected 11 picks in the 2025 draft. So they have some wiggle room. They can become really creative and add some spice by trading up to select Penn State outside linebacker Abdul Carter, who might be the best player in all of college football. Mike says a move like that would go against the Ravens' tradition of sticking with their picks or trading down to acquire more selections, but it would at least signal to fans that the team's willingness to gamble in an attempt to win a championship. One thing is certain, the slow death routine every year in Baltimore has gotten old. Mike continues to say Tennessee's James Pierce Jr. or Georgia's Michael Williams might go earlier than the Ravens' 27th overall pick, but Texas A&M's Shamar Stewart or Marshall's Mike Green might be available. But, Bobby, kind of the idea here is, okay, maybe certain veteran pass rushers might not realistically be available to the Ravens, okay? But that would cost much more, even if they were realistically available. That would cost much more than trading up and getting a young phenom. What are your thoughts initially? We'll get into Abdul Carter more and what he's all about for those that don't know much about him. What are your thoughts about trading up big time to get a prospect like Carter?
It's intriguing, certainly intriguing. I kind of went down memory lane preparing for this opening segment and looking at what Lamar has had at pass rush.
Okay.
While you have had some names, Zadarius Smith was there for his rookie season. Of course, we only saw a half season of Lamar down the second half stretch when he took over for Flacco, and obviously never looked back from there. Judon in 2019 and 2020 certainly had, and he was there. Matter of fact, he was drafted in 2016. So for 3 years, Lamar had Judon on the other side of the ball, who, of course, was paid handsomely by the Patriots and spent 21 to 23 there. And in recent years, obviously, 2 years ago, Jadeveon Clowney had one heck of a season. And we know that Kyle Van Noy certainly has enjoyed his 2 most productive years of his long experienced career over the last couple seasons. But again, these are names, right? And it's no disrespect to those names. It's just they aren't the true needle moving, or in your words, game wrecker that could flip this entire thing around. And so I appreciate the comparisons there that Mike is making. I think it's intriguing. And they obviously have the draft capital to do it. So they've taken a lot of shots, as we know, because of the Penn State. We know that there is a lot of inroads between the Ravens and Penn State. They have not hit on a lot of those swings that they've taken in recent years. The jury's certainly still out on an Odafe Owe, who, of course, earned that fifth-year option being exercised and had himself a pretty productive year. But that needle-moving guy is somebody that they're still looking for sure. And while they paid Justin Madubuike for that interior presence last year, and I think it was deserving, they're still looking for that overwhelming presence on the edge, which they have not had throughout the Lamar era.
No, they have not. And obviously the Penn State, channel to the Ravens hasn't produced what we had all hoped. But obviously somebody like Abdul Carter, like that's another level. You don't hold that against him. If you just want to understand who this guy is, Mel Kiper has him ranked as the top outside linebacker heading into the 2025 draft. Now that could always change, of course. But a couple of the other guys that Mike Preston had mentioned potentially might be more realistic. So here's Mel Kiper's top 10 outside linebackers. I'll just give the top 5. Abdul Carter, number 1 on that list. Michael Williams from Georgia, number 2. Mike Green from Marshall, 3. James Pierce Jr. of Tennessee, who Mike Preston says, hey, could be there at 27. Or Donovan, I'm not going to even attempt his name. I'm going to have to look into that. I'm sure others do. Meanwhile, if you want to know what Daniel Jeremiah, former Raven scout, thinks, Bobby, Daniel Jeremiah's top 50 prospects, he doesn't do it by position the way Mel Kiper does. He just does a top 50 regardless of position. He has Abdul Carter number 1 over the Travis Hunters of the world, the Shedeur Sanders of the world, I mean, anybody you can think of, obviously. Daniel Jeremiah has Abdul Carter as the number 1 ranked player overall, regardless of position. Here's what Daniel Jeremiah had to say about him. He said, Carter's an electric edge rusher. He has average height and bulk. That's the knock on him, right? That he's going to have to beef up. He's still got that younger man's body, hasn't made it into his grown man body yet. But despite that average height and bulk, Jeremiah says he has an elite burst, and his ability to flatten at the top of his rush is special. He's got a lot of early wins because of that speed. Bobby, I looked at some of his highlights. I mean, the speed is off the charts. It is off the charts. And he has no wasted movement either. Like, you watch him, and it's like, boom. I saw Lamar Jackson make fun of a wide receiver route at the Senior Bowl, and the guy at the top, or at the start of his route, he's just like running in place trying to juke his guy before he even goes. Like, that's so much wasted time and movement. And like Abdul Carter, that is not him. Some pass rushers will try to get things going too. No, Abdul Carter does not waste any movement. It's back to Jeremiah. He says he also has a nifty swipe/rip move. If tackles overset, he senses it early and crosses their face for immediate pressures and sacks. He also has a natural ability to retrace underneath when quarterbacks climb the pocket to avoid him. He can press out and control tight ends at the point of attack. He's a blur when chasing plays down on the backside. Overall, Carter can take over and completely, here's the buzzword, wreck on an offensive game plan. He demands attention on every snap, and that is going to free up everybody else around him. So, Bobby, given how Mel Kiper has him ranked, how Daniel Jeremiah has him ranked, I hear what Mike Preston is saying. I just don't know. I mean, we say that they have 11 draft picks, but it's going to take to go from 27 to 1. You're going to have to start digging into future draft picks. Like it's not going to be enough to get all the way up to where this guy might go. I mean, who knows? I mean, depending on, who knows what kind of trades we're going to see at the top of the draft, if people are going to try to go up to get their quarterbacks, all that kind of stuff. But Abdul Carter could go anywhere from 1 to 5, right? And so that brings us back to kind of what Mike Preston is saying, where he brings up some of these other guys. He's like, well, if you can't trade up for Abdul Carter, okay, the pressure is still on to get one of these other top guys. Because as he said, it's gotten old, the slow death routine. So maybe it is James Pierce Jr. or Michael Williams or Mike Green or Shamar Stewart. He goes on to write, he says, regardless of which one you get, the Ravens need strong pass rushers around for another 4 years to complement Jackson. He goes on to say, if Jackson's healthy, the Ravens are going to score points. He talks about how balanced the offense is. On the other side of the ball, they were 10th in total defense with the number 1 ranking against the run, but 31st against the pass. If a team wants to improve its pass defense, then add pass rushers. It's not hard to figure out, he writes. The Ravens got decent and consistent pressure last season for both outside linebackers Kyle Van Noy and Odafe Owe, but both were no-shows in big games against tough teams like Philadelphia in the regular season or Buffalo in the playoffs. So, he's right. He's right. And by the way, just talking about, it'd be nice to get Myles Garrett. Is it realistic? Don Cliveman talks about that the Commanders have the best odds to get him, then the Eagles and the Bills. Holy crap, if any of those 3 teams get him, like that's trouble for the Ravens. And they need to be able to counter, because the Browns, if they trade Garrett at all, which I think they might, because I think he'll put the pressure on, I just don't see it coming to Baltimore. And so the draft is a place that if you're going to get aggressive, and you do need to get aggressive, get that guy across from Lamar Jackson. Get aggressive, whichever one of those guys are. Go get him. Don't wait for him to fall. Go get him.
Well, how about the segue that we have going on impromptu right now, Sarah? Because Daniel Jeremiah just dropped his 2.0 mock drafts, and we all know the ties that he has to Baltimore as a former scout. I believe you guys overlapped during your time in the building. So he just dropped this. So let's go see. Let's go see on the fly who he's got.
Well, go back up. Go back up. So look who he has number 1 overall. Tennessee, Abdul Carter.
Abdul Carter. Okay.
And then Cam Ward to the Cleveland Browns, and then Travis Hunter to the Giants. Okay, I just wanted to see those top 3.
I was going to scroll right past that. How about that? A dude that we just spent the last several minutes talking about goes 1 to Tennessee. To your point, Cleveland takes their quarterback in Cam Ward out of Miami. Travis Hunter, the do-it-all, both sides of the ball, goes to New York, meaning the Giants. And then we'll just say, how about top 5? Will Campbell, a tackle out of LSU, goes to New England. And Mason Graham, a defensive tackle out of Michigan, goes to Jacksonville.
Scroll down. Can you just go somewhat slowly? I want to see where these other outside linebackers go.
Sure. Shador, he's got going to Vegas at 6. He's got a tight end out of Penn State going to the Jets and Tyler Warren. There's an edge rusher right there. Jalen Walker out of Georgia going to Carolina.
There's Mike Green.
There's another. And maybe the run begins, right? Mike Green out of Marshall, edge to New Orleans at 9. You've got a tackle and Kelvin Banks Jr. out of Texas going to Chicago at 10. So anyway, so on and so forth. But I'll just kind of I'll build the momentum here. How about this? I'll just kind of slowly scroll. There's Michael Williams.
Now that's more realistic. That's a more realistic trade if you like a guy like him, right? 27 to 15 is still going to cost a pretty penny, but it's more realistic.
Some corners off the board. You got interior offensive lineman, a wide receiver, which I don't know if there was a wide receiver in his previous 18 picks. I'd have to go back and look. You got a tight end going to Denver. This is going to be an intriguing one based on some of the research that I've done. Ashton Genty is a big-time dual threat pass-catching running back out of Boise State. He's got him going to potentially be Najee Harris's replacement in Pittsburgh at 21.
Cool with
You've
that.
got another running back. And by the way, DJ, in a different tweet that I saw, he thinks there's going to be a historic run on running back in the opening round. So wouldn't that be something? I was just going to say, for a team that's already pretty much set at running back.
Loaded at running back.
I'm not saying they won't retool later on in day 3 maybe, but man, what an amazing opportunity that would be if there's a run on that position in that opening round prior to 27th. And that brings us to Daniel Jeremiah's 2.0, and it is Shamar Stewart, the edge rusher out of Texas A&M, going to the Ravens at 27. DJ's little blurb is as follows. Stewart just feels like a Raven to me. He's big, explosive, and disruptive. The production will come, and if you need a little bit of something on Shamar Stewart, he's 6'5", 281, and here's an overview provided by Lance Zierlein, an NFL draft analyst. Stewart is carved from granite, possessing a rare blend of traits, explosiveness, and untapped upside. He's long and sudden off the snap, but hasn't yet learned to weaponize his hands to control the point of attack and bypass protection with go-to moves. His bull rush compresses the pocket off the edge, and he's too athletic for guards when reduced inside. He can be very disruptive in both phases, but requires additional training to start converting his opportunities into finishes. The lack of production relative to the traits is a concern. Still, players who move like him are highly coveted. While the boom or bust label might be in play, it feels like a matter of time before it all starts to click at a high level for Shamar Stewart, who in Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft 2.0, Sarah, he has going to Baltimore.
Nah, I don't know if I love it, Bobby. 4.5 sacks in 3 seasons. Didn't we already do this with Odafe?
Yes, we did.
No,
Evan says the production will come, quote, we've heard that before.
And it did come. He's got 10, but we're looking for a game record, right? Like he had double digits this year. Like that's cool. It came in his 4th year, but and the Ravens are going to have to replace him. I don't think they're going to give a long-term. I mean, after this year, they're going to have big holes. Like I don't necessarily foresee them re-signing Kyle Van Noy again after this year. And Odafe, I don't see a long-term contract.
Unless he goes off.
One now, and it's like super, modest. So they are going to have to retool, and maybe Shamar Stewart is a guy that's like I just don't know that I'm ready for another project like that.
No, I'm with you. Everybody has some have PTSD. There's been plenty of projects that have come through in recent years. And by the way, don't rule out a Matabike type season for Odafe in year 5 that would obviously warrant an extension, but I just don't know the likelihood of that. He's shown signs, he's shown flashes, but for him, it's the consistency part of it, and it's speaking of what Shamar's being knocked out, or what's a knock for Shamar, the finishing ability. We have not consistently seen that from 99, right? The athleticism is not what's up for question. The character is not what's up for question. The variety and technique that Chuck Smith has brought out of him is not what's in question. It's can you consistently finish when you are in the neighborhood of the quarterback, and he has not shown that he's capable of doing that consistently.
Right. So. And I'm like, if you need a project in developing somebody, I'm here for it, but not with the 1st round pick. And I get it's number 27. It's not like they're picking in the top 10 or even the top 15. But like at this point, get a different position where that he's going to like be able to contribute right away. And so just another project with your 1st round pick. Nah, I'm more looking for like a Zay Flowers impact right away. And of course it'd be harder to get a Linderbaum or a Kyle Hamilton immediate help or immediate impact because those guys were early draft picks. But what about Wiggins? Wiggins was later. And he was able to give an immediate impact. Go somewhere else. I just don't need at your 1st round draft pick another developmental project.
So there you have it. Daniel Jeremiah, former Ravens scout, has his former team selecting Shamar Stewart out of Texas A&M. We had our conversations about Abdul Carter, who he has going number 1 overall to Tennessee. A lot of this is for the purpose of the exercise, the purpose of the need, the purpose of the priority, which we're going to do in the coming weeks. Field Yates and Mel Kiper had a conversation on the ESPN side of things for Fields' 3.0 mock draft in terms of who he has the Ravens going after, but we should probably get to some super chats before we get there. How about that?
Sounds good.
Dre Dog got us started about 15 minutes ago. And he says, do we forget that the Ravens had 11 draft picks and didn't trade any? I believe it was that last year. I'll believe it when I see it if EDC and crew gets up off some of them picks to get legit talent at any position. Lizard Wiz.
Yeah, it's like Mike Preston said, it's not what they traditionally do. They either stand pat or they move back. It's rare that they go up, especially far up. But like
there's
Mike
a certain
said,
Louisville quarterback.
Yeah.
There's a certain Louisville quarterback they might be willing to buckle.
Yeah. Well, and they moved back a few times before they did that.
Yes, they did.
Yeah,
Yes,
they did. Lizard Wiz says, love the idea of trading up, but for best player available, not need.
Kobe writes, how about trading for another Nittany Lion, Micah Parsons? His interview with Derrick Henry was like someone asking a friend if he likes their job and if they have openings. We shared clips from that last week when he had Derrick on. And of course, they were in New Orleans together.
And remember, Micah straight up said, I'm telling you what, if at the end of my next contract, we're not in Super Bowl contention, I will be going out ring shopping.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
Moneybag said, what position are we really going in round 1 reality? It's what the previous super chatter said. It's going to be best player available. I mean, it can, and it can match need a little bit, but there's plenty of needs. It could be offensive line. I could see an offensive lineman being taken at 27, a plug and play. I mean, the Ravens got a plug and play right tackle in the second round. It could get a safety, which I know we're going to be talking about here in just a second. A guard. I mean, any of those guys, you can find those 3 positions late that can immediately impact the team.
Certainly something I had a shower thought about earlier in the week was if they let Ronnie walk because of the type of money that a left tackle of his caliber who's had a resurgence commands in the market, who's to say they're not going to be back in the right tackle market if they feel confident that Roger can move to left tackle? They feel okay about Voorhees potentially being their starting left guard for the future. And if they want to continue with the Fa'alele experiment, who got an all-pro vote and a Pro Bowl
I'll tell you right now, they're going to continue with Fa'alele at right guard. It's going to happen.
And if that's the case, maybe on day 2, all of a sudden you have yet another priority looking for your future right tackle.
Yep. Okay.
Brian Walters says, think we can trade Jerry something shiny for Aubrey. Oh, their kicker. Jerry, he's talking about Jerry Jones, and he's talking about their kicker.
I'm not
giving Brian, I hadn't thought about that. But
I'm not giving any draft capital for a kicker. Sorry.
Louis.
All hail #the vault. Shh, don't tell my piggy bank he's back spending his money with us, Bobby.
He's always showing us love. Thank you, Louis. Sod Blitz 34 says we were second in sacks last year, first in 23. I'm not sure what getting another rusher is going to do. We need secondary help more than a pass rusher. Now, you're right on those statistics, Sod, but in do or die moments, their edge did not show up in the postseason. And I think that's the lasting impression you have of the group. Statistically speaking, collectively, fantastic. And you mentioned Triple Crown, points allowed, takeaways, and sacks in 23, and top 2 in sacks this past season. But what are you going to do for me in those do or die moments? And they have not gotten the production they need in recent years. Another one from Sod, Sarah.
Just real quick, chat is saying like, oh, now Sarah's on the Fa'alele bandwagon. What I just did is I predicted what the Ravens are going to do. And I promise you, with 2 potential holes along the offensive line at left guard and left tackle, they're not going to do a third hole in the offensive line with Daniel Fa'alele. Although I have said several times that Daniel Fa'alele proved me wrong. I mean, he played better than I thought he would. I for sure was one of those people that was like, put Ben Cleveland in there and sit Fa'alele down. Now, would I go as so far as like saying that he was a Pro Bowl caliber offensive guard? No, even though he somehow made it as one of the backups. But that's my prediction, is that the Ravens are for sure sticking with Daniel Faalele. Let's just make it. I'm not his number one fan here. I'm telling you what the Ravens are going to do. At least what I think they're going to do. Okay, Sod Blitz says if Malachi Starks.
Malachi.
Right? Malachi Starks. Ooh, Malachi. Usually there's an H in there. Is there at 27, we should take him, which would give Kyle more ability to move around and put Marlowe back outside.
Sod, we are going in that direction in just a minute. Isaiah C278 says, whichever position we choose for the secondary, I just want Hamilton to fly around and cause some chaos. Of course, Kyle, a candidate, Sarah, potentially for an offseason extension from that 2022 draft class. And maybe, just maybe, they head in the direction yet again for safety in the opening round. That's what Field Yates of ESPN seems to think. In his most recent mock draft 3.0, he has Baltimore selecting Georgia safety Malachi Starks, who again was just mentioned by Sod in that super chat, at 27 overall. Here is the clip, courtesy of First Draft, the show that Field and Mel do together on ESPN.
27th pick in mock 3.0, the Baltimore Ravens take Malachi Starks of Georgia. Are you happy?
Love Malachi Starks. You didn't have. I think he's a ball magnet. I think that's what he's going to be in the NFL. He will go get the football. He's got great range. Didn't have the phenomenal year we expected. I thought he could be a top 10 pick back in August. We talked about James Pierce Jr. and Michael Williams. Malachi Starks was another one of those guys we had way up there in terms of August, even September. Remember that play against Clemson he made? I thought he'd pick off
first game of the season
this year. That was the only interception, I believe, was the one against Clemson.
That's right.
Which was a highlight reel play. But I do think in the NFL he can be a ball magnet. He already proved that during his career. Okay, I think he ended up with 6-7 interceptions for his career. Could have had more this year. Ended up with just one. But I like this pick. I also think corners the need. Now, the key guy here is TJ Tampa. If TJ Tampa is he a corner, is he a safety? He's a heck of a football player. Now, the recovery speed is the thing in question. That's why he was a fourth-round pick, not a second-round pick. But I think TJ Tampa is going to play a role in this secondary moving forward in 2025.
So a couple things to break down there. Obviously, the player who is projected to go to the Ravens by Field. And then obviously the second-year player who Mel Kiper kind of unprompted there gave a major shout-out to, and that is the former fourth-round pick from last year's draft out of Iowa State, cornerback TJ Tampa. So let's break this thing down category by category, and we'll begin, Sarah, with Malachi. He is a 6'1", 205-pound junior who, again, played his college football at Georgia. Lance Zierlein will go back to his analysis, who had this to say on NFL.com about his draft prospect profile. He's a 3-year starter with reams of high-leverage games on his resume. Most Georgia players do. Starks is a versatile safety with the size and athleticism to eliminate contested catches and the speed and ball skills to shine when the action travels deep. Connection to the route is inconsistent in man, and he's baited out of position by misdirection, but better discipline and anticipation should clean that up. He's not a true force player near the line, and his pursuit angles can be raggedy, but he gets guys down when he's in position. Starks has feast or famine moments on tape, but he figures to test well and star in team interviews. He's a future starter as a movable back-end piece whose consistency will determine his floor/ceiling. So again, Field of ESPN has the Ravens going after a safety, which is certainly a need at some point in this draft. Your initial impression of Malachi Starks?
Yeah, no, he's a guy. He's the dude. Guy's not the word I was looking for. Guy's usually an average. No, he can play. He can play.
You're telling me he's a Jag? You're quoting the great Steve Smith?
No, that is not what I'm saying. No, he can play. He can definitely play, as was stated, like most Georgia guys can. And it's a need for the Ravens, obviously. Eric DeCosta said in his latest press conference that they would like to get another safety so that they can move Kyle Hamilton back to that Swiss Army knife role. Would it be my ideal scenario that they're using their number one, their first round draft pick on a safety over what I see are priorities in the trenches, whether it's on the offensive or defensive line? That is not my ideal scenario. But if the Ravens get to 27 and they haven't been aggressive and traded up, like we mentioned in the top topic, then you want to get a guy that you feel like is going to start for you for 5 years. If you use that 5th year option. So definitely want to build those trenches. I want somebody that's going to hit Patrick Mahomes. I want somebody that's going to protect Lamar Jackson. But if those guys are gone, then the next thing you do is you get the guy who you feel like is going to play for 5 years, and Malachi could fit that bill.
And again, I feel like I need to reiterate what Daniel Jeremiah is predicting. And again, we're still 2+ months out. But if there's a running back run and a historic run at that in the opening round prior to 27, maybe, just maybe, one of those impact edge players will be there, Sarah, that the Ravens can take advantage of. And obviously that would be a welcome sight. The second part of that clip that you heard Mel Kiper go down was TJ Tampa. And he's the Ravens 2024 4th round pick at corner out of Iowa State. Mel said the key guy to this secondary he's looking at is TJ. And he went on to say, I think TJ's going to play a role in this secondary moving forward in 2025. He also mentioned that the recovery speed was one of the main reasons why he dropped in last year's draft to the 4th round. So this was a player that unfortunately was really stuck working from behind when he went through that sports hernia, that double sports hernia surgery at the end of training camp, which derailed the opening part of his rookie season. When you look at the numbers, he played just 18 defensive snaps in 7 games. He played 138 on special teams. So this was a player that we saw very little of, but that clearly, and Mel has a lot of Baltimore circles, clearly is somebody that's looked at as somebody that can be an integral piece to their puzzle moving forward, whether it be at corner or elsewhere within that secondary.
He's got a wide open path to do what Mel Kiper is saying here. Brandon Stevens is likely gone. Eric DeCosta essentially said as much in his last press conference, saying that they were going to allow him to test the market and see what we can go out and get. They would like to keep Marlon Humphrey in that nickel cornerback position. And so the path is paved for TJ Tampa. If he is healthy, he will have the entire offseason. He will have bulked up. He now knows what it's like to be an NFL player. He knows what's required. He should know the defense by now. And I think once we start having these OTAs, mini camps, all that kind of stuff, there's no reason, why he will have every opportunity. I'll say that. So it's going to be up to him to snag the role that Mel Kiper is talking about here and to show why he was underrated when he was drafted last year. I mean, by like fell by like a round and a half based off of what guys like Mel Kiper were projecting him to go. So as long as he's healthy, he's going to have every opportunity to seize that role.
Yeah. And might he be a candidate to serve as maybe that nickel role, depending on how this shakes out in the coming months. So again, couple different angles of that snippet that we wanted to take a look at, including a safety that is being mocked to Baltimore and Malachi Starks, and what the future looks like for a second-year corner in TJ Tampa. We've got over 1,800 of you joining us concurrently on this Tuesday afternoon. We appreciate you for being here. Please like the video on the way in. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so, and hit that notification bell so you can be notified of when we're dropping our daily live content. We got a couple more super chats in the last few minutes. Moneybag writes, our defensive line didn't even sniff, I think he said, Allen's cleats in that game in Buffalo. Get an elite pass rusher. Eagles gave us the blueprint. EDC, bunch of face palms, bunch of shaking my heads, and another one from Moneybag.
This actually, what he's saying right there feels a lot like after the Broncos won the Super Bowl with Peyton Manning and then Von Miller, because Von Miller was like taking over in the Super Bowl. And here we are again. The blueprint's been the blueprint for a while. Hit the opposing quarterback. That's always the blueprint, whether they're a rookie or whether they're a Super Bowl MVP. That's the blueprint. Moneybag says, we just have a horrible history of drafting projects and injured players. Tired of waiting 2 years to see a guy just end up on special teams. Sad.
And that now brings us to more team building notes. The new league year looming next month. Ronnie Stanley, obviously, at the top of the list in terms of decisions that are still to come for the Ravens in terms of whether or not they're going to let their former franchise tackle walk, Sarah, in free agency. He will be commanding a decent chunk of change in the coming weeks.
Yeah, so with that opening today at 4 p.m. to franchise players. Now, again, even though the window opens today at 4 p.m., it usually teams don't actually use the tag until when that deadline closes, which is a couple weeks away. But the Ravens really don't have anybody worthy of a franchise tag. Like you said, Ronnie's probably the top free agent, but he's not worth the average of the top 5 tackles in the league. He's not worth that much. He's, like you said, a decent chunk of change, but not a top 5 chunk of change. So with the Ravens not really having any candidates for the franchise tag, that takes us to look at inside the division. And this could be very impactful. Okay. Now, it was reported out of the Cincinnati market. Sports Illustrated writer James, what's his last name? Let's see if I can get it over here. We'll get his full name. But he tweeted yesterday, sources, the Bengals plan to use the franchise tag on T. Higgins. And he links to a story where he kind of gets into it a little bit more.
His last name is Rapien. Rapien, one of those two.
Okay. He writes for Sports Illustrated, sources say Higgins' camp expects to get tagged at this point. He would be the top free agent if he were to make it to free agency. That isn't expected to happen. The Bengals will tag Higgins by the March 4th deadline. Their why of tagging him certainly feels different this time around. Last year, the Bengals tagged Higgins, and there wasn't much dialogue about a long-term contract. He was the only player that was tagged by his team last year that didn't sign a multi-year extension. This year feels different. The Bengals plan to sign the star receiver to a long-term deal, sources say, and Higgins changed agents in December in order to facilitate that. So a lot of people yesterday saw this tweet by T. Higgins' mom. Selfish, BASTARDS. But she goes on, and everybody thought that was in reaction to this news coming out by James. But she later clarifies that it was not in reaction to that. She says she was talking about something else.
Huh.
But I don't know. I am incredulous that they're actually going to sign him to a long-term deal. And this would be his second franchise tag in 2 years, Bobby.
Yes, it would. And between Joe Burrow's comments, Sarah, putting a lot of the onus on the organization, between all the priorities that they have with different players that need to be extended, with ones that are coming not long or along the down the road, and then Instagram posts like this that are in cryptic fashion and of course get the people talking, right? T himself earlier this week, priorities are rare, options are everywhere. That's up on his Instagram. I mean, there's a lot of pressure. Speaking of pressure mounting, we built this episode around that being the case in Mike Preston's view and our view about the Ravens when it comes to their pass rush. How about just pressure mounting in general to keep the band together, Sarah, in Cincinnati? I mean, that's what's taking place right now for their front office.
Well, and this is why I think this is a bigger deal than and I wanted to have like this bigger conversation because as you mentioned, Joe Burrow made the rounds in the media during Super Bowl week. And he put publicly pressure on the Bengals front office and ownership on several different shows. he was on with FS1, and he said, of course, he's willing to restructure his contract. We'll get into that in a second, what that means. And says he has faith in the Bengals ownership. And quote, we have the cap space to get it done because it's not just T. Higgins. There's Trey Hendrickson, who's going to be coming up. T. Higgins, Jamar Chase is going to need to be. Jamar Chase wanted a new contract last offseason after his third year. Yeah. So he's going to be coming up. Mike Gesicki, he said, Burrow said, we all want to stay together. So he made that very clear when he was talking to the media. And then when he was on Pardon My Take, he went in a little bit more detail, putting even more pressure on his front office.
I'm going to be asked this a lot because obviously T. Higgins is a free agent, and they're going to be like, hey, Joe, will you take a restructure of your deal? I'm not going to ask if you're going to restructure your deal. I'm going to actually ask, what does that mean, restructuring a deal? Can you explain it to us like we're five?
Yeah, so you could do a couple different things. You could convert some of the money to a signing bonus, which will lower the cap hit.
Mm-hmm.
You can push some of the money to the back end of the contract, and then when you get to that lowers the cap hit, and then when you get to the back end of the contract, you can restructure it and convert it to a signing bonus.
Okay.
And then you can also just take less money.
And which one were you going to do?
We'll see.
That's great.
It's so funny because a lot of NFL fans that aren't really versed with contract lingo, right? They're like, yeah, look at, he's willing to restructure his contract. No. He's clearly saying, you guys kick the can down the road, and when I'm gone, you can deal with the cap implications later. He just said it. He's like, you can convert my base salary to a signing bonus. That means he gets a check right now. And the money that wasn't guaranteed before, well, now it's guaranteed because he gets the check. You just converted it to a bonus. And then you deal with the cap money down the line. And then they're like, well, what else could you do? He's like, oh, you could just take less money. Like, make sure you're not giving like players like some sort of hero compliments if they take a restructure. They're actually getting more money up front. Why wouldn't they restructure their contract? For sure. And then they're like, so which one are you going to do? Are you going to restructure and get that new money up front, or are you going to pay less? Oh, we'll see.
Oh, I was going to say big cat with a masterclass interviewing session there. Yeah. I'm not going to ask you if you're going to restructure, but can you please explain it to us? This process, as if we're five, does so really eloquently and concisely on the back end. So which one are you going to do? I mean, that was just that was absolutely classic.
Now here's one thing I will say. If we back up on this slide where he says we have the cap space, I will say this: the Bengals, according to Spot Rack, they do have about $50 million in cap space. Now the Ravens, according to Spot Rack, have about a little more than $8 million. And that $8 million is like, you can't even pay your 11 draft picks with that. I mean, they have $50 million. So when he's talking about needing to restructure and all that, like, you could actually do some of these deals and front load them because you never, Mike Brown over there, the owner, they never spend all the way to the cap. So he has a reputation. Some people are calling him the cheap-a-natty Bengals. Cheap-a-natty Bengals. People accuse the Ravens of being cheap, which is not true because they're always paying up to the cap. Ravens aren't reckless. That's what I think fans are more wanting him to do, which is what, going the Joe Burrow route there. But here's what's interesting, Bobby. There is no way Mike Brown, after he already let go of Joe Mixon, didn't pay him. Jesse Bates III, didn't pay him. Both those guys moved on. And now you've got Chase. You've already paid Burrow. We're talking about T. Higgins, and then there's Trey Hendrickson. They're not going to pay them all, even though they have that $50 million in cap space and probably have a lot of money going forward. They're not going to do it. So on First Take this morning, they explored the idea that if Joe Burrow's putting this pressure on them, say like they don't concede, what will Joe Burrow's reaction be?
The reason why Jesse Bates III is now in Atlanta, Georgia. That's another reason why Joe Mixon is down in Houston for the Houston Texans. Two players that actually could have helped the defense for the Cincinnati Bengals, and one player that could have actually helped the offense and gave Joe Burrow something else to resort to. So when I look at the Cincinnati Bengals, that's why I'm on Freddie and Harry. Freddie called them a cheapinati Bengals because they don't want to pay people. But it's hindering and it's hurting, in my opinion, Joe Burrow and this team collectively from going to where they want to go. Maximizing Joe Burrow while he's on this contract right now, and you know he's playing upper echelon football from the quarterback position.
Speaking of that,
Well, I think
Stephen A., I just wanted to come to you on this. Do you think if they don't take care of this situation, that Joe Burrow should ask for a trade so they don't waste?
That's where I was going. I think that he should, and I think that he will. I think that the Joe Burrow that we met during Super Bowl week, the Joe Burrow that we've seen talking in front of the microphone, he's made it a point to be very conspicuous in his positions. Yep. He's letting them know he's not happy and he ain't about to stand pat. And he's not about to be a quarterback for a franchise that ain't trying to win. And he's hoping that history doesn't repeat itself. But as the saying goes, you can't keep teaching old dog new tricks. And Mike Brown is Mike Brown. And considering the money that the NFL practically prints, for crying out loud, you would think this man would prioritize winning.
Look, not to mention, they have to completely retool their defense through the draft and free agency. We haven't even talked about that. They had a historic. Yeah, they had two players on the offensive side of the ball who had historic seasons, and they had nothing to show for it in the month of January. So, and because of the other side of the ball, we haven't even talked about that as a priority. That might be a bigger priority than what we've just spent the last 10 minutes talking about, and that's saying something.
And that's with Hendrickson. Right. And now he's going to have to be paid. Here's what's funny or interesting, Bobby, is like the Bengals will be like legit good for several years and then legit bad. And so and the reason is because they won't pay, big money to hold on to their drafted players. And then that'll force them to draft in like the top 10. That's how they got Burrow and Jamar Chase in the first place. Right. And then so you enjoy that for several years. And then it's like, well, how long are you going to hold on to him for? And then that's when they go back to mediocrity. They could do that for a while and then maybe get a high draft pick again. That's always been kind of like their cycle. So that'll be interesting because they might be doing a little shock kind of TV there of like, oh, Burrow will request a trade. I'll just say this. If they don't re-sign Higgins and Chase, then I can see that as a realistic possibility. But if they re-sign Chase, I don't think he's going to do that. He'll continue to put pressure on him, but I don't think he'll ask for a trade if they do end up paying Chase. But they didn't do it last year, and his price tag is only going up. So we definitely want to keep an eye on this because if there's trouble in Cincinnati, that means, better things for the Ravens in the AFC North.
I was going to say more of a window, and especially when the other team that's been your biggest rival in recent years, and what I mean by that is they've dominated you in recent years in the Pittsburgh Steelers, even though you got the last laugh in the playoffs this past season, they're looking for a quarterback. Right. So could it be Aaron Rodgers that ends up in the AFC North? That's probably a conversation to be had in the coming weeks. Yeah. So let's get to some more super chats. And look who we have here, Sarah. This one is aimed at you from our friend Jake Asman.
Oh, Jake. There are the aimed at me, but really aimed at you. Sarah in Indy, ready for Bobby Trossett. Okay, so wait, when do you head out to go to the combine this weekend?
So we officially booked flights last night. Jake's been booked for a while, and everybody, if you need a reminder, Jake is our pal who covers the Jets within the YouTube space. He's got over 40,000 subscriptions, and he has opened up all kinds of different opportunities for us access-wise at the Super Bowl, and he and I are going to be at the Combine together next week in Indianapolis. I fly out Monday afternoon. I had some things change, so you and I will do the show normally from our studios on Monday. I'll be there Monday night, meaning Tuesday through Friday. I will be in Indy doing the show.
Okay. And are you going to be getting on your dating apps? I guess that's really what Jake is asking here.
Well, I have to say, I think the way that I repay Jake, since he goes out of his way to include us in these different access opportunities with NFL events and whatnot. Did I tell you that we went on a double date in New Orleans that was initiated by me?
Oh, I did not know that.
So maybe, just maybe, my geotag on Hinge makes its way over to downtown Indianapolis in the coming days, and I set up another future double date at
Okay.
St. Elmo's, the steakhouse, or maybe Commission Row. I've had so many people reach out to me. I put my Instagram story up last night that I was officially going and I wanted recommendations. They're flooding in. I'm going to try and get to a Pacers game at night. Denver's in town, by the way. So I
Nice.
definitely want to go see Nikola play.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah.
Because
and I are
Jake,
gonna be-
Jake may not have gotten the memo that like you're basically converting to LDS because of all the 4 or 5 women that you wanted to take out after going to that event. Jake may not have gotten that memo.
I haven't had a chance to update him on my weekend activities with Richard, but that will come probably during our first dinner sit down in Indy. So we look forward to that. But yes, NFL Combine, my first coming up next week, and I hope to track down as many people as possible for the show. And then it goes without saying, if you guys want to send me prospects, I'll do my best.
Oh,
we're going to be
stick to the trenches, Bobby. Stick to the
I was going to say, we can't go wrong with the trenches, but if you guys have specific, niche types of positions or players that you want me to try and track down and observe, I'll try and do that.
Are you going to be asking a question at the press conferences with John Harbaugh and or Eric DaCosta?
Might have to. Now, here's the thing. We're going to have to be just like we were in New Orleans. We're going to have to be kind of fluid with everything we're doing.
Yeah.
Our show is not going to change time-wise, but let's say Eric or John is set to meet with.
If they're set to meet in the 12
reporters.
o'clock hour, we got to move.
Yeah. So we're just going to, you know how it goes. We're going to get creative. I'm going to try and find a good place to set up and go live from and do everything we do so that nothing skips a beat next week. But Jake, not sure how to answer that. I have not yet shifted my Hinge location, but I do have a girlfriend, a friend that's a girl that happens to watch our show that's a huge Ravens fan, that we are verbally agreed to go to dinner at some point next week. Don't know what that'll consist of, but we'll see what next week brings. And if she's got
it was
friend,
a business transaction.
I know she watches, so I'm keeping it PC over here. But if she's got a single friend, PSA, Jake is available, and we enjoy double dates. So I'm just throwing that out there. On to C King. I'll take this one.
Okay.
Thinks Danucci Kane is going to show out next year. Another defensive back that is a second-year player. They found him out of Purdue in the 7th round, if I'm not mistaken. He was a special teams standout, King.
Mm-hmm.
So I would expect him to continue in that role. And if there's an opportunities for him to compete at safety in OTAs and show himself out, then who's to say he can't be a role player for them? Because that dude is a stud in special teams, and he also showed some pop in preseason as well, if memory serves. Diamond Bull.
Ravens draft inside defensive lineman Kenneth Grant, Yates scenario. Travis Jones, 1 year left. Grant has not a like size and athleticism, played for Michigan under Jim. Ooh, that one actually, I was feeling good until the end there. That Michigan pipeline hasn't been very good for the Ravens either.
Okay, hold on a second here.
Oh,
Diamond Bull.
Oh, Bobby's taking notes.
Kenneth Grant, interior defensive line. Okay. Thank you, sir. And how about Larry showing us some love with $20 super sticker? Thanks, Larry, for being with us on today's live stream. And Diamond Bull, I'll go with this one. Philly's defensive line dominated, not because of elite edge rushers, but because of elite interior defensive line play. We do need a safety to free Kyle up for the star position. And another one from Larry as well. Thanks, Larry.
Dang,
and he
Larry.
also had a comment, Sarah, which I'll let you take.
Larry's feeling generous today.
Yes, he is.
Like $32 if I'm counting correctly. Sign Ronnie and pair Daniel with Mekhi Becton.
Mekhi is somebody that I just saw a tweet on earlier, but I'm not going to speak out the side of my mouth because I didn't know what it was, but he is somebody that's being looked at this offseason. I think he was a draft pick of the Jets, and that didn't work out there. And where did he end up? Let's just do it. Is he in Philly? Let's see. Yeah, he's in Philly. Okay, so he just won a Super Bowl.
Yeah, no, that's one of their top free agents.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. I just haven't.
They might re-sign him. We'll see.
I haven't studied the tackle class as much. He's tackle, is he not? No, excuse me. He's guard.
He's a Pro Bowl guard.
He's a Pro Bowl guard. I got to.
And if I'm not mistaken, I believe every time Saquon Barkley ran behind him, he averaged 7.1 yards per carry running behind him.
All right, I got to get spruced up on his status, but yeah, he's set to hit unrestricted free agency. So appreciate you, Larry.
I would take him over Daniel Fa'alele for the record.
Stick your neck out there on that one. A couple more have come in as well. Massey says, Sarah, Bobby, can you make hierarchy of blame game why Ravens with Lamar, number one offense for 7 years, haven't made or won a Super Bowl? Defense, offense, coaching, luck. Can you rank who you blame? Ooh.
For all 7 years? Because it would change, right? Like the AFC Championship game, I would put the coaches number one. If it was this last year, I would say it's the turnovers, which is the players. Obviously, Mark Andrews and Lamar at the top of the list because of those turnovers. But obviously Lamar took him back and put him back in contention. So, but if you're talking about 7 years overall,
what holds the most weight? I
got to think about this.
Yeah. This is actually a really good one. Over 7 years, how do you collectively assess blame as to why Lamar and the Ravens haven't reached the Super Bowl? Oh my goodness. I mean, early on in his career, you could
early on, I would say coaching because of Greg Roman and holding on to him and like just the way I felt like Greg Roman worked in 2019, but he never evolved.
Right. But what about personnel wise though? Is it fair to say that front office would deserve some blame for the lack of diversification within that offense?
In 2019? No.
In the postseason. It reared its ugly head in the postseason.
Listen. It's hard. We got to throw out the years that Lamar finished injured, right? So we're throwing out, is it 20 and 21?
21 and 22.
21 and 22. That's right. Because in 20, he got the concussion in Buffalo and that playoff game.
Yeah.
But Greg Roman did not evolve, and Lamar and John Harbaugh allowed that to happen. And in 2019, you're 14-2. You absolutely have the personnel to do it then. Now, did they have the defense and the linebackers? No, but you clearly had the roster.
But
go 14-2.
But I would push back a little bit and say they had the roster to mull through competition in the regular season. And I'm of the belief that in that divisional round game, when they were punched in the mouth and they were forced to throw through the air in order to get back into that game, they didn't have the horses to do so.
Yeah. And the problem is they changed kind of, I mean, they let Derrick Henry run all over him. They didn't have the personnel on the defensive side, but they also, I think, panicked and didn't, stick to things that were drops. Remember, Lamar they had to go away from the running game, and Lamar had a gazillion drops with some of his stuff. But I feel like that when you go 14-2, to me, you have the personnel in the regular season. And then in 23, the Ravens had the personnel. They had the number one defense. You had Lamar with, perhaps one of his best receiving cores when you had Zay coming on and Bateman and OBJ, and then you had Mark and you had Likely. Didn't have the running back. I remember the Ravens went through a lot of running backs, but I felt like they had the roster to get it done. And I felt like they went away from the game plan in the AFC Championship game. And I thought that they had the personnel again this year. And again, that doesn't mean that they were Eagles worthy, right? Eagles had a way better defense. They were more of a complete team. But the story of 2024 was constantly shooting yourself in the foot with penalties and turnovers. But I'd say overall,
in 10 weeks of a bottom barrel defense.
Yeah. But I'm not absolving when I'm pushing back on the personnel and we're doing a hierarchy. I'm talking about who to start at number one. I don't put personnel and therefore the front office number one. You know what I mean? Like they're on the list, but I wouldn't put a lack of personnel number one.
Yeah, I don't either. I more so am like trying to group it up over the 7 years in phases. And that was like an opening phase that was an Achilles heel for them, in my opinion. And so I don't think it's number one. I think ultimately, this is a great question. And obviously, we're thinking about this on the fly, Massey. So thank you for posing it. If I had to pick number one, I'm probably going to go execution
over coaching
or lack thereof, and a close second due to the AFC Championship and the weight of that game and the fact that they were one away from the big one. I'll take coaching and strategy.
I think I would reverse those top two. But
Okay.
in 2024, I would say execution for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
That was good stuff. Isaiah, are you opposed to be re-signing Devin Duvernay? Is he already a free agent? Was it one and done for him in Jacksonville? I actually have to look into this. I haven't taken a look, but he was somebody that. I'm sorry.
I said, is he a free agent again? Was he
I was going to say he must be. Isaiah, to quite frank, I haven't looked into this, but obviously he was somebody that built himself up to an all-pro return level in Baltimore, and that is something, Sarah, that they got to figure out from a special teams perspective. Who's going to be that guy moving forward?
Yeah, I was going to say, as a special teamer, I'm like open to it, but there's a part of me that's like, but like he was fine, right? He was fine, but can you like swing for something better?
Yep.
Yeah.
And that brings us to a couple quick hits before we jump today. And you brought this one in, and yet another graphic that makes last year's first rounder look awfully good.
It just keeps coming up. One of these days, I'll just get all these graphics together because 33rd team keeps coming up with these that makes Nate Wiggins look great. But they've got rookie pass breakup leaders in the regular season and postseason. Nate Wiggins is tied for the third spot with 13. He's tied with Renardo Green of the San Francisco 49ers. I mean,
you're right. The statistics.
Cooper DeJean's down there at number, he's tied for 7th. But boy, did he have himself a Super Bowl.
Did he ever?
Oof.
1 year in the league and already an iconic moment that he can sign autographs and make money on the rest of his life. I think that's on his birthday, no less. That's Cooper DeJean. What do they call him? The exciting white. The exciting whites in Philadelphia's secondary. I find that absolutely hysterical.
Meanwhile, his teammate, also a rookie, Quinion Mitchell, is second with 16 pass breakups. Like what a draft by Howie.
Hey, can I just say this too? I think the real exciting white for my money is Mr. I know. Let me tell you, the Mac McClung dunk contest from over the weekend, it's in recent years the only thing from All-Star Weekend that actually packs a punch from a viewership perspective. But Mac is a beast, and this dude's got a vertical through the roof. Did you see any of these highlights from the dunk contest over the weekend?
No, I had it in my background. I was listening to First Take, but I never looked up and watched the footage.
Oh, believe me, I don't blame you. I think All-Star Weekend they got a lot to look at in terms of how they're going to sort of get that to be something that is can't miss stuff for NBA fans. But Mac McClung jumping over a car, incredible. Anyway, let's finish things off with what you brought in, the perfect lineup.
I thought would be fun. NBC Sports did one of those. You have $15 to purchase the perfect NFL lineup. How do you do it? Okay. Now, this actually seems kind of easy because for some reason, NBC Sports made Josh Allen the most expensive quarterback. If Josh Allen wasn't even the most expensive, I still wouldn't purchase him. But they got Josh Allen in the 5 spot, Lamar Jackson in the 4 spot, Mahomes $3, Hurts $2, Joe Burrow $1. Okay. So I thought it'd be fun if we build a team, a non-Lamar team and a Lamar team, but I want to start with Lamar. Okay. So Lamar is $4. Easy money. What a bargain.
This is just to be clear, you are starting a team that has to be with Lamar to start with here.
Yeah, that's what we're going to start with. It has to be a Lamar team for $4. So I've got $11 left.
All right.
Because
let's go get it back.
Yes, because the Ravens are number 1 in rushing, regardless of who the running back is, and he's no slouch, I'm going Bijan Robinson for $1. Okay, so
Okay.
now I've spent
All right.
$5.
$5.
And I
Let's
got
get
10
let's
left.
get a wide out.
Watch this. $5 for Jamar Chase. I want to see Lamar Jackson throw into a legit huge wide receiver.
All right, $5 left.
$5 left. So I gotta split between tight ends. Now Lamar likes his tight ends. Okay, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna spend $2 on Scary Terry.
Okay, you're gonna get some veteran savvy.
Yeah.
At the
Okay.
cheap.
At
so
the
you're gonna
cheap.
go
For only
get
just
you're gonna go
$2.
get 2. So you got
Okay.
$3 remaining.
He likes his tight ends. I don't even have the money for it, but I can't bring myself to get Kelsey. He's a little on the older side. I'm gonna give him George Kittle for $3. He loves his tight ends.
You're going Kittle, and that brings you to 15.
15.
So you got Lamar at quarterback. Yep.
Go ahead.
I honestly don't remember what you did after
Lamar,
Bijan.
Bijan Robinson, Jamar Chase, Terry McLaurin, and George Kittle. Oh, give it to Lamar.
Okay. All right, that's $15 right there. That is a lineup that has to include Lamar. So I assume next up we're going to go with Mahomes.
Well,
what we're doing?
what's your team for Lamar? You got $4 down on Lamar.
My team with Lamar will go 4. I'm going to get me a back with the King. I'm up to 8. I'm going to keep it Baltimore centric here.
Okay.
Put money aside here for a second. 8. I need a wide out. And I want a big body. I'm going Drake London for 1. That brings me to $9. Let's see here. From there, I need a tight end. Why is Brock so expensive?
Wait,
That's
what
a
are the
problem.
2 wide ends? What are the 2 wideouts you got? You said London and who else?
I got
You got to get 2 wideouts.
I got the King right now at running back, and I got Drake London at my X. Okay. So I'm up to $9 with 6 to go in terms of the space that I have available, and I'm looking for a cheap tight end, and there's not many. I'll go okay. Actually, let's see. I'm going to go Laporta in Detroit, which brings me to 10. I need another wide receiver now. So let's see. I got the big body in London, and I got 8, 10. I got $5 to spend. Got the quarterback taken care of.
You got to get one more in the wide receiver column here. Starting
I'm
with
gonna go. I'm gonna go with Neighbors. I'm gonna go get me.
Oh,
Neighbors.
you got $2 left over then.
I got 8, 10. Yeah, I got $2 left. So Neighbors is my $3.
But you got to get one from each column.
Oh, is that?
You already got them all.
I got to go one each column.
Yeah.
Did you do that?
Yes.
Oh well, I just totally botched the exercise. You got to be kidding me, son of a. Well, whatever. Listen, I'm staring at a freaking 2:30 appointment for a root canal. We got to go.
No, he's talking about depth here.
You.
This is $15 for your starting lineup, not depth. You're not going back to get depth.
Unbelievable. I was excited about that lineup too. Well, anyway, tell me your Mahomes one because I got to go.
Here's what you're Mike Brown over at the Cincinnati Bengals. You're like, I will pocket that $2.
Here we are ripping on him all 20 minutes to start off the show, and here I am doing the exact same thing he's doing, just in a different way.
Oh man! All right, could you imagine this? Okay, Mahomes for $3. Let's give him Saquon. That's 8. Let's have fun. Well, so 8. Give him Puka Nacua for 4. So now we're at 12. Wait. I kind of spent a lot on running back, but I would like to see it. So we're at 8.
Teal, I'm with you. What? $15 is $15. You're right, Teal.
What was that all about?
She's like, 15 is 15. LOL. Why each column?
I mean, if you want to get depth and like not a star, you went with, what did you do? You just left Justin Jefferson on the board and you had the money for it.
I went with Lamar, the King, Drake, McBride, and then neighbors, and you were like, "Oh, wait a second."
And you kept skipping over the second wide receiver column. That was the funny thing.
You're dang right I did.
Yeah. Okay, I'm taking back Saquon. He's too expensive. I'll go Mahomes, Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
Right? That's pretty good. 7. Then I'll give him Puka Nacua,
Yep.
taking us to 11. Let's go Jefferson, taking me to. I might be overspending here. I'm going to restructure some contracts. Don't you worry about it, Justin Jefferson. And then I'll give him Sam Laporta.
Amazing. And there you have it. Apparently, folks are saying that I qualify as Ravens GM now, meaning I'm cheap, and the Ravens are cheap. Unbelievable. They always take their chance of calling front offices cheap. You guys are funny. Well, great stuff. Yes, I do have a root canal appointment coming up at 2:30, so let's see what happens.
I'm sorry. I've been through my share of terrible dentist appointments in the last little while. Terrible.
Yep. Time will tell what this visit is like, but you will get a full recap tomorrow. We appreciate you guys for being with us. There's over 2,100 concurrents. So like the video on your way out, subscribe to the channel. We're trying to get to that 24,000 subscription number sooner rather than later. We actually just hit 23 the other day and said nothing about it just because we're in the middle of off season. So hit that notification bell if you haven't already done so you can be notified of when we're dropping our daily live content. Send me your priorities for Combine Week, which is coming up next week in Indianapolis. I will be there on the ground, and we will be live all week long as usual at our 12 noon lunch hour stream, Eastern time. So for Sarah Ellison, I'm Bobby Trossett signing off from this Tuesday live stream. We appreciate you guys for being here. And as always, thanks for being with us inside the vault. We'll catch up with you soon.